Greetings, kindred. I'm sorry about being late again. I seem to be late all the time over the last year or so. But the energies have been very intense and there's been a lot going on. And I think it's on an individual, personal level for everybody, most people. And I did the podcast yesterday for the chart wheels. You know, we'll get into those in a minute, and there's quite a lot going on in our skies between now and mid-February. But I want to talk about another dream that I've had about a week ago. And, you know, it won't be every time I'm talking about dreams. This section will always be a mishmash of stuff, you know, whatever I feel is relevant at the time. But the reason why I'm going to talk about this dream is because it involves Venus and Saturn. And it's quite strange, actually. I don't normally dream about the planets. And, you know, but it was a repetitive dream that kept repeating itself. And, you know, it's all about Venus forming a pentagram in our sky. So every 8 years, Venus forms this pentagram, which is like a 5-pointed star, but it's more curvy, you know, her motion is more curvy. And yeah, so, you know, she was forming this pentagram, and then the pentagram would turn into a lily, and then it would turn into like a rose. And it was really fascinating, but the whole dream was in black and white. And but every time I was focusing on her transit, on the patterns she was making, Saturn kept coming up to me or kept moving towards me. And there was this atmosphere of like foreboding. But it was just a feeling. It wasn't like there was anything actively going on that was foreboding. It was, you know, I mean, Venus is, what I was seeing with Venus was very animated, it was very real. But this energy that was coming in from Saturn was just like a feeling. And when I woke up, I thought, right, let me research the next hard aspect between Saturn and Venus. And it does turn out actually on the 29th of March, Venus and Saturn come into square. And that's a very prescient energy, like financially, emotionally. But then when I was doing the podcast yesterday, I realized that Venus is caught up in the stellium in Sagittarius, and Saturn is actually conjunct our new moon, which would make sense about the feeling, you know, and the stellium is all about, you know, it's very active. Stelliums are very active in the chart. So it kind of makes me feel now it's this new moon. And on this new moon, we move into the year of the water tiger, which is fantastic. The water tiger is actually connected to Aquarius. So I feel that there's a lot of independent energy coming out this year. And I feel like we are all coming back to ourselves. But also Neptune moving into Pisces. I mean, Neptune in his own sign, I mean, Neptune doesn't have boundaries anyway, and in his own sign, even more so. But it is a very creative, a very beautiful energy. But I feel Saturn is warning us, you know, to keep our wits around us, keep our wits about us, you know, keep our boundaries in place. There is a lot of, see, the pentagram's all about the occult and magic. And I just feel that we just need to protect our auras and make sure that any ritual we do is positive and uplifting. And also with Neptune in Pisces, it's a very sensitive energy. And we had a little bout of it last year, April. And I won't talk too much about it because I've gone into it in my podcast. And I did notice through the summer months, while Neptune was in Pisces, there was a lot of camaraderie. I mentioned that in the podcast anyway, but yeah, it's going to be a beautiful time, even, you know, once we come out of this solar eclipse energy that's still ongoing, and all the transits that are going on right now, it's all pushing us really into a place of acceptance, you know, like this is what it is. You know, let's make the best of it. Let's stand up for our rights. Let's keep our boundaries in place. But at the same time, let's be creative. Let's have fun. That's what I felt. So let's move on to the podcast now anyway. And yeah, always. So here we are with the chart wheels, and the new moon will begin on the 1st of February 2022 at 5:46 in the GMT time zone, at 00:46 in the EDT time zone, so that's after midnight, and 16:46 in the AEDT time zone. So wow, you know, it's still a pretty kind of intense time at this new moon. There's a lot going on in this chart. And, you know, we have a little stellium of planets in Sagittarius. And I feel this is more around relationships though, you know. But, you know, we have the Black Moon Lilith in opposition to Mars. Now, at the last new moon, when I did a podcast, I did say, as Mercury started his retrograde mode, you know, there would be an eruption, and I felt it was volcanic, and, you know, that occurred. But this particular time with the Black Moon Lilith in opposition to Mars, you know, there is a T-square forming towards Chiron. Now, this is on a global level. And Chiron in Pisces is very sensitive, but it's very emotional. And, you know, sometimes it's like a deep-rooted pain or grief, you know, a lot of sadness. And this little stellium here, you know, the reason why I feel it's more about relationships is because the goddess Vesta is involved, Venus, and the goddess Juno. And the goddess Juno has actually just moved 0 degrees in Capricorn. Now, the goddess Juno is all about commitment. She normally represents the marriage partner in an astrology chart. But a partner that was wronged in some way or abused in some way. So, with Pluto in conjunction to the goddess Juno at one end of this stellium, I feel like there's been a sense of loss regarding a commitment or a marriage. Maybe there's been a lot of reminiscing going on since Venus has been in retrograde recently, and just came out of retrograde actually on the 29th of January. And I have written an article about that, and I'll paste the link below to that article if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're on my website watching this, then it'll be the blog before this one. So if you're watching on FB, then, you know, obviously the link will take you to my website anyway. So just look for the blog below this one to read up on the Venus retrograde cycle. And I'm doing this podcast first before I'm doing my introduction, so I will be talking to you all, or I would have already spoken to you all about the dream I had about Venus and Saturn. So I'm not sure if that dream is relevant to now, because I didn't really realise that Saturn was going to be conjunct our moon and sun until I saw this chart wheel. And I didn't realise that Venus was going to be in the middle of this stellium in Sagittarius. So I just feel there's a lot of restriction going on when it comes to relationships. And I feel these are more really about relationships from the past. You know, that saying that goes around, you know, the one that got away, it feels like a missed opportunity, but really it isn't. It's like there's this fear of approaching a person or a situation and getting to the bottom of it, you know, either for closure or to reignite that kind of relationship, building up on a relationship again with someone of the past. So I feel like there's been a lot of realizations that, you know, many have come into, and that would make sense because over the last 2 years we've had a lot of time to reflect. You know, we've had a lot of time to really see the world through different eyes, through different lenses. You know, many of us won't ever see this world the same way again, whilst, you know, others of us were always aware that what was being portrayed and what the actual reality was two different things. Because really we've all been kept so busy in our lives concentrating on what we need that we haven't really had a chance to look around and just see the world on a bigger scale. We haven't had that time for meditation. We haven't had that time for reflection. You know, even though really we should be making time for that no matter how busy our lives are. But I've been in that place where I've been so busy, I haven't had time to sit down and even think about the next hour, let alone tomorrow or other places in the world. We all kind of get trapped in our own little world. So, you know, the black moon in Gemini, she does cast a shadow of acceptance, and there is this fear of rejection with the black moon in Gemini. So I feel that there's been relationships where a lot of people have been suffering in silence, you know, maybe playing the martyr or just not having enough faith in themselves to come forward and have that conversation that needs to be had. And I think that conversation does need to be had, even if it is just for closure, or even if it is to reignite something that was and isn't anymore. So here in the UK, you know, the black moon does fall in the 7th house, and the 7th house is about relationships, but not just intimate relationships. It's also about friendships and working relationships. It's across the board in the 7th house. To me, the 8th house is the house of commitment, the house of marriage. So in the 7th house, I mean, this could also be about friendships. You know, friendships that have kind of like dispersed. There are friendships from the past that people want to make amends with, where one person or both people were deeply, deeply hurt. So this is all about reparation. I mean, Mercury is still in retrograde at the moment, but Mercury is due to go direct in about 2 days from the new moon. But, you know, there is a post-shadow to Mercury, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Mercury in retrograde in Sagittarius, this is going over old ground. In Sagittarius, it is about ventures, or could have been at a time where we were a little bit more selfish or a little bit more flippant about things, about our relationships, about our lives. But, you know, with the sun and moon in Capricorn conjunct Saturn, it shows me that this is a serious process right now. So the new moon chart is really, to me, all about relationships with our friends or past lovers, maybe even recent friends, or stuff that's gone on over the last 2 years. It could be about family relationships. There's been a lot of division going on within families over the last 2 years. But Saturn is also very authoritative. And with Uranus being in opposition here in the UK to the midheaven, which is all about the public, the midheaven supports the public house. And the midheaven being in Libra here, in the 12th house of, not quite publicly, but in groups and when it comes to networking. So it could also be the justice system in Libra. So Uranus in opposition to the midheaven, they're both in square formation to the Sun, Moon and Saturn. So things are happening with our authority figures here. Things are being exposed, which we kind of mostly know about now. But yeah, I think the pressure is on. And I just feel that publicly or for justice, there is going to be a shift or a change in authority figures or in authority systems. Or even in our own personal systems, our self-value in the second house. It's really about our status, where we feel, how much we feel we're worth. But this Black Moon Lilith in opposition to Mars, forming this T-square to Chiron, and Mars is actually at one end of this stellium. Ignore the ascendant and part fortune. Part fortune is always close to the ascendant anyway at a new moon. So the ascendant is really for the UK. So really in the UK there is a hell of a lot going on. But it's more on a personal level. How we're seeing things personally or as a group of people. And, the fourth house is about home and family, although it's ruled by Gemini, not Cancer. And I will explain that all one day. And I will be starting up classes soon about the True Lifetime Sky System. I'm kind of planning for around the summer solstice to do those classes. But I'll keep in touch with you all about that. So that's really what I'm seeing for this new moon. I don't feel it's so much about revelations globally. I feel this is more seeing things come to completion, or seeing them escalate, or seeing more conversations coming out. It is a serious time. But I feel a lot of amending going on within relationships too. So I really do feel there's some kind of justice there that's coming out, that's going to inform people, whether this is collectively or individually, where we can have that conversation to make things right, whether it's for reconnecting or going separate ways. That conversation is there to be had, and it doesn't look negative. It just looks like we can make peace with whatever that situation is that's been lingering for a long time and is being based on hurt or that feeling of rejection, or it's stuff that's really been surfacing through the Venus and Mercury retrograde, and it is normally stuff from the past. So that's what we have for the new moon. So Mercury will end his retrograde on the 4th of February, early afternoon here in the GMT time zone. Now Mercury will finish his retrograde mode at 28 degrees in Sagittarius. Now he will go into post-shadow, or will be in post-shadow actually until the 23rd of February. And that's when he will reach back to 10 degrees in Capricorn. And that's where he first started his retrograde. So we're still in this post-shadow energy, so I would still be very wary of buying electronics or going into business ventures, more so until the post-shadow ends on the 23rd of February. And he will be in conjunction to Pluto. So I think the new moon will trigger this energy where we feel we need to have a conversation, or we feel impelled to have conversations for closure, or to put our side across, or to, reignite something that was lost. And, I feel it'll be as Mercury ends his retrograde that we'll kind of feel a little bit more freer to do that. This is also good time to look into things a little bit more deeply as well, especially if we're studying or we're researching. Anything along those lines. I just feel that with Pluto conjunct Mercury as he turns direct, it can be mind-blowing for some. But there's this energy of getting to the bottom of things, basically. Pluto rules Scorpio, and to me Scorpio is the best at investigating. He's the one that can really dig deep and get to the bottom of things. So I really do feel over the next few days after the new moon, there will be a lot of conversations that will be had. There will be a lot of information coming forward, or a lot of clarity around certain situations or around certain relationships. But we just need to hold it down when it comes to the way we approach our relationships, or the way we approach people or situations. Because, with Mars in opposition to the black moon at the new moon, I mean, that can be a very triggering energy as well. We can kind of respond or react in an explosive way because we're feeling pain, because we're feeling hurt. But we have to temper that and come into our own self-confidence, our own self-awareness, where that hurt and that pain is more controlled. It's something that we need to heal. Or it could be, someone just like spur the moment taking action and thinking, right, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So Pluto will be in conjunction to the goddess Vesta, so a little bit away from Mercury. And this is all about motivation, important kind of issues coming up around science or humanitarian values. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like there's going to be some steps that are going to be taken forward, and I just feel this is more on a public level. There's a lot of number crunching going on with this energy, and it's a dedication to the investigation. So I really do feel things are going to hype up on the investigative level. And, this is very good for forensics. And when I say forensics, I'm not just talking about the police force. I'm talking about, looking deeper into, in a forensic way, looking closer, studying something much closer. And, whether that's for the negative or the positive, whatever comes out of that. And I don't feel that will be put out into the public straight away. I feel that, there's a certain psychology to it where, you have to know how to put information out there without causing panic or without causing concern. And that is the normal psychological approach to putting out information. But we haven't really had that over the last couple of years. We've just had a lot of stuff slap bang in our faces, and it's been pretty hard to swallow. and it's caused a hell of a lot of emotional and psychological health problems. And that is going to take a lot of healing, because even though we freed up here in the UK quite a bit, you know, it's so sad when I go outside and still see people with fear in their eyes, not comfortable. You know, and I'm saying that because we've got Mercury in trine to the North Node and Mercury in trine to the goddess Ceres. A lot of people may feel they need counselling through this time, or they may feel they need convincing through this time that everything's going to be all right. So we also have the Black Moon Lilith, though, in opposition to Venus and Mars at the time of Mercury turning direct. So in opposition, she'll still be in opposition to Mars, but they won't be forming this T-square towards Chiron. Venus will be conjunct Mars at the time, so she'll be in opposition to both Venus and Mars. Now, you know, there may be disappointments with some of the conversations that need to be had, but what we've got to realise is that closure is better than staying in a place of like grief, not knowing, you know, where you stand in a situation. So I just feel that even though there will be disappointments, because I feel these conversations come in with a lot of hope and a lot of high expectation, but, you know, for some it will turn out, it'll be happy endings. For others, it will be like a bit of a letdown, but at least then you can shed all that emotion, heal all that emotion, and just move forward with your life. You know, this is a time now where we need to shed the old to make way for the new. And I feel that's emotional. Can also be around finances as well. Maybe, you know, a lot of people are struggling financially, and they're getting to the point where they're feeling like enough is enough, they can't take no more. Or it's becoming too overwhelming and they can't see their way out of financial stress. And again, you know, the sun is still in conjunction with Saturn, although the moon would have moved on. So I feel this is more maybe to do with the system, to do with authority. It's all connected to scarcity as well. Black Moon Lilith is kind of in Gemini still at Mercury Retrograde, but she may be in Taurus a few days later, because she is that kind of point that flips backwards and forwards. She's never going in one direction. You know, she goes backwards and forwards like in a blink of an eye. So around the new moon and Mercury going direct, she'll be in Gemini. As Neptune enters into his own sign of Pisces, she would have resorted back to Taurus. So I'm going to get into that now, Neptune entering back into his own sign, because Neptune did enter his own sign last April, but he didn't ever get more than 1 degree before he retreated backwards to Aquarius in the true lifetime sky. So we had a little taster of Neptune in Pisces, and I feel like it was a much happier time for humanity at that point. There was such a camaraderie, you know, such like soul connections, and like more uplifting, because when Neptune is in Aquarius, it's a lot more about higher consciousness. It's a lot more about facing up to the realities of our situations. But with Neptune in his own sign of Pisces, we can tend to go into a little bit of escapism. We can find that little bit of escapism in our lives, although we have to be careful we don't get stuck there
or take it too far out of context. But Neptune to me in Pisces is a very, very creative sign. It's a very, very creative placement, I should say. And like I said, last April, Neptune did enter his own sign. He managed to make it to 1 degree, and by September, he started his retrograde mode. I think it was around about December. He entered back into Aquarius. So he will be entering into his own sign of Pisces again, but this time he will be staying in Pisces. So it's bye-bye Aquarius now for Neptune. He's done his jaunt there. When he goes into retrograde mode later in the year, he won't actually be going back. He'll actually stay in his own sign because he's entered it earlier this year. So last year he entered into Pisces around about April. This year he's doing it in February, so he's got 2 months extra in Pisces before he retrogrades backwards. So he won't get back into Aquarius. So for me, I actually like it. I mean, a lot of people have a problem with Neptune being in Pisces because, you know, there is this sense of like escapism. We can wander off into fantasy land and get a little bit lost. You know, we could develop addictive personalities with Neptune in Pisces, but we can use this energy wisely in creation, in being creative, in trusting, excuse that car, trusting our own psychic abilities, our own intuition, our own awareness. You know, we will all definitely be feeling our environments a lot more aurically. So to me, with Neptune in Aquarius, it was more hearing, it was more clairaudient, it was more telepathic, and it was more informational, like information coming in. There was a lot of downloads coming in through the time of Neptune being in Aquarius, but for some people it was overwhelming and it caused a lot of mental health. But see, with Neptune in Pisces, this is more about visuals, this is more about clairvoyance. So I always say Aquarius is telepathic, clairaudient. Pisces is more clairvoyant. He's very good with visualizations, very good with manifesting, as long as the manifestings can fit into the real reality. So he will enter into Pisces on the 7th of February. And he will be in sextile to the North Node, which is good. It's a very nice harmonizing energy. So we're all going to get that brotherhood, sisterhood feeling back. Not that we didn't have that when he was in Aquarius, because Aquarius is all about brotherhood, sisterhood. But where Aquarius is an air sign, Pisces is actually a water sign. So Aquarius is more about logic and reason, whereas Pisces is more about emotions and feelings. And there's a big difference there. So with Neptune also in sextile to the goddess Ceres, he's also in sextile to Mercury, who will still be in post-shadow, and he will also be in sextile to Pluto. And that actual aspect has been going on for quite some time now. It's a long-term aspect. Neptune sextile Pluto is a very long-time aspect, and that's all about social change, changes in our governments, and our approach to human rights. It's about spirituality and where the occult is actually given more power or taken more seriously. And it's a time where a lot of people, you know, seek to live off-grid. So that is literally Pluto sextile Neptune. That's what that situation creates. And Pisces can be a manipulative sign. It can be a dominating sign. Water signs can be pretty dominating, but they're kind of like emotionally blackmail you, you know. That's how that negative energy works in that respect. It's more like manipulation through emotional blackmail. So that is what we need to watch out for. So it's not really being manipulated psychologically now. It's being manipulated through emotional blackmail. And, you know, we need to watch out for that. But I would say that many gifts will be discovered with this Neptune in Pisces. A lot of people are going to discover the artist in themselves. So I always say that out of chaos comes a lot of creative energy. You know, it's like new beginnings or a new way of living. And I just feel that is really relevant with this particular transit of Neptune. So the moon will be in conjunction to Uranus when Neptune moves into his own sign of Pisces. And I just feel like this is going to be a big step forward. So all this like self-doubt, all this fear of rejection, all this fear of not being heard, I just feel now we're going to get to the point where we won't care anymore what people think, what people say. We're going to want to express ourselves. There's going to basically be a shift in how we feel about things. And in Aries, it's like strength. And, you know, this moon conjunct Uranus will also be in trine to Mars, who's the ruler of Aries. Now, he will be in conjunction with Venus and the goddess Vesta. And, yeah, I just feel like people are really coming into their, well, you know, either way, I'm going to do this, you know, I'm going to take the risk, basically. People are going to be impelled to take a risk, to move out of their comfort zones, to not suffer in silence. You know, people are going to really take up that sword of truth. And it doesn't have to be a global truth or a collective truth. It's got to be a self-truth. And I just feel that's what this Neptune shift is going to bring about. And Jupiter will be at 11 degrees in Aquarius. So that is mastering our humanitarian values. And, you know, it's still, there's a lot there to overcome when it comes to authority or restrictions and stuff like that. But there is still this kind of like niggling fear of scarcity, probably when it comes to our resources. But I just think people are just going to get to that point of like, whatever's going to be is going to be. And that is definitely a Neptune in Pisces energy. Whatever's going to be is going to be. So of course everyone wants to know about Valentine's Day. And Valentine's Day is always on the 14th. And, you know, again, Venus will be in conjunction to Mars, conjunction to the goddess Vesta. You know, there is this little stellium going on, although it seems to be in two halves now. I mean, even as Neptune enters into his own sign of Pisces, the stellium actually splits down the middle. There is a split there in the middle. So, to me, what that's showing is the conversations that are had. There are going to be disappointments for some, but it's going to be beneficial for others. And I just feel this split down the middle of the stellium is showing me the true soul unions, whether that's in friendships, relationships, intimate relationships, I should say, or family relationships, you know, those that are meant to come together and gel back together, that will be occurring. And for those that are parting, they're ready now to shift, move forward, and opening themselves up to a new adventure with somebody else or another group of people. But I still feel this is more about intimate relationships. Towards mid-month, things will calm down a bit. You know, the black moon will actually be in Taurus at 23 degrees, but she won't be making any hard aspects to any other planets. So I just feel there's a lot of shifting going on, a lot of awareness around having to restructure our lives for some. I mean, for a lot of us, our lives won't really change that much, but for some there will be big changes, and I feel that's coming from a place of acceptance as well. So I feel on this journey between now and Valentine's Day, mid-month, you know, a lot of us are coming to terms with our new situations, if that's where we're at, and willing to let go now of the past, you know, not hanging on to the past where it's not really working for us, you know. So I just feel there's this big acceptance going on of our situations, in whatever situation that may be, and, you know, making plans and strategizing for the future. And even though it might still be a little bit emotional and a little bit tender for some, I feel like there is this shift in energy where we can let go and move forward, if that's where it's got to be for us as an individual. So I hope I've made sense with that, because I have struggled today. I have to say it's been so intense. But, you know, I am seeing a lot of stress still. I am seeing a lot of restriction, or a lot of coming to terms with things, or a lot of information that's still coming about and, you know, circulating. But overall, I just feel that we're beginning to adapt a lot quicker to things now, and with a lot more wisdom. So to me, that's a positive step forward, even though for many of us we're not there yet, not fully. There's still too much going on in this world that we need to analyse and support. We need to support our brothers and sisters. We need to not fall victim to the divisions that are going on. Just give that understanding and support, but at the same time come to realizations that we're all in the same boat. We all live on the same planet, and we're all human beings that want to live our life as best we can. And if we can see each other in that light and not judge each other and not get caught up in the hype, because it is all hype. The facts are there if we're ready to research. Switching on our TV is not going to tell us the facts. And I can say that because I am a researcher, and I am seeing people called out that, you know, are actually 100. But it's all being called out and it's all coming to light. There's a lot coming to light. But we have to be willing. It's all about choice. It's all about what we're willing to see, what we're willing to believe. Because, you know, just because it's truth, when we don't necessarily believe it. You know, we can be hoodwinked. But I just feel that, a lot of people are coming into their own self-power, following their own instincts, following their own guidance. And really, at the end of the day, that's how it should be. Anyway, I shall leave it there. I'm sending you all peace and much love.